I'm Sophia Reynolds, 52, and nothing prepared me for finding my daughter Lily huddled in her beat-up Honda, 7 months pregnant and terrified. It had been 6 months since she disappeared without a trace. As I tapped on her window that night in the grocery store parking lot, the fear in her eyes broke my heart. She tried to start her car, desperate to escape from me, her own mother, the daughter I had adopted at age 4, raised through scraped knees and graduation, now looked at me like I was her worst nightmare. I had no idea that what I would discover next would change our lives forever. Where are you watching from today? I'd love to know in the comments below. Hit that like button if you've ever had a moment where everything you thought you knew about your family was turned upside down. Subscribe to join our community of survivors and supporters as I take you through this journey of heartbreak and healing. Trust me, nothing could have prepared me for what I found next. It had been a long day of business meetings when I stopped at the grocery store in an unfamiliar part of town. My consulting job often took me to different neighborhoods, and this time I needed to pick up a few essentials before heading home. The store was nearly empty at 11 p.m., just a few night owls like me grabbing last-minute items. As I walked out with my small bag of groceries, something caught my eye in the far corner of the dimly lit parking lot, a beat-up blue Honda Civic with familiar dents along the passenger side. My heart skipped a beat. It couldn't be Lily's car, could it? The same car we had bought her for her 18th birthday, the one that disappeared along with her 6 months ago. I approached cautiously, not wanting to frighten whoever was inside if it wasn't her. As I got closer, I could make out a figure reclined in the driver's seat, seemingly asleep. The windows were slightly fogged from the inside, but I could see enough. My legs nearly gave out beneath me. It was Lily, my daughter. The child we had filed countless missing person reports for, called hospitals about, hired private investigators to find. For a moment, I froze, a storm of emotions hitting me all at once. Relief that she was alive, anger that she had put us through such hell without a word, confusion about why she had run away in the first place. But most of all, an overwhelming urge to hold her, to make sure she was real. I tapped gently on the window. Lily startled awake, disoriented for a split second before her eyes focused on me. What I saw next haunts me still, pure terror spread across her face. Not surprise, not shame, not even guilt. Terror. As if seeing me, her mother, was the worst possible thing that could happen to her. "Lily," I called through the glass, trying to keep my voice steady. "Honey, it's me." She scrambled to sit upright, fumbling for her keys in the dark. I heard the engine sputter as she tried to start the car, hands shaking violently. The car was clearly on its last legs, and it took several attempts before the engine caught. "Lily, please." I pressed my hand against the window. "I just want to talk." "Please." She paused, and in that moment of hesitation, I noticed something that nearly knocked the wind out of me. The swell of her belly under her oversized sweatshirt. My daughter was pregnant. Very pregnant. "Go away," she mouthed through the glass, but the car remained in park. "I'm not going anywhere," I said firmly, finding my strength. "I've been looking for you for 6 months. 6 months, Lily." We've been out of our minds with worry. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Slowly, reluctantly, she rolled the window down a crack. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "Neither should you," I countered, taking in the state of the car. Clothing piled in the back seat. Fast food wrappers on the passenger floor. A pillow and blanket arranged where she had been sleeping. "How long have you been living in your car?" She looked away. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me," I said, fighting to keep my voice from cracking. "Everything about you matters to me." The silence between us felt like an unbridgeable chasm. This wasn't the reunion I had imagined hundreds of times. In my dreams, there were explanations, apologies, hugs, not this wall of fear and distrust. I took a deep breath. "Are you hungry? There's a diner across the street. Open all night." She hesitated, one hand protectively covering her belly. I could see her weighing her options, maybe calculating how much gas she had left if she tried to flee. "Just food," I promised. "No lectures, no questions you don't want to answer, just a meal." Her resolve seemed to waver. I noticed then how thin her face looked despite her pregnancy. The dark circles under her eyes, They have those blueberry pancakes you always liked, I added gently. A small, involuntary smile flickered across her face before disappearing. I can pay for myself, she said with a flash of pride. That's fine, I agreed, willing to accept any terms that would keep her from driving away. After what felt like an eternity, she nodded. Just food, she repeated, making it clear that was all she was agreeing to. I stepped back as she shut off the engine and opened the car door. As she stood, I could see her full profile. She had to be at least 7 months along. My heart raced with questions I had promised not to ask, at least not yet. We walked in silence across the parking lot, a careful distance between us. Each step felt fragile, as if any wrong move might send her running back to her car and out of my life again. I had found my daughter, but it was clear that convincing her to come home would be an entirely different challenge. The fluorescent lights of the all-night diner cast a harsh glow over Lily's face, revealing details I hadn't been able to see in the dark parking lot. Her once vibrant chestnut hair hung limp around her shoulders. Her cheekbones stood out too sharply, making her appear older than her 19 years. Only her eyes remained unchanged, the same deep blue that had captivated us when we first met her at the adoption agency 15 years ago. We sat across from each other in a booth far from the few other late-night patrons. An awkward silence settled between us as we studied our menus, though I barely registered the words on the page. All I could think was, my daughter is here, she's alive, and she's pregnant. The waitress came, and Lily ordered the blueberry pancakes I had mentioned, plus eggs and bacon. I asked for coffee and toast, my appetite gone despite not having eaten dinner. Once the waitress left, the silence returned, heavier than before. 1,000 questions burned on my tongue, but I remembered my promise. No interrogation. Let her open up on her own terms. How's Dad? Lily finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Worried sick about you, I answered honestly. We both have been. She picked at the edge of her paper napkin, tearing tiny pieces off. I'm sorry, she said, not meeting my eyes. Why, Lily? I couldn't help asking. Why did you leave like that? No note, no call, nothing. We thought the worst. Her eyes welled up with tears. I couldn't face you. I was so ashamed. Because of the baby? I guessed gently. She nodded, one hand moving instinctively to her rounded belly. How far along are you? 7 months, she confirmed. The waitress returned with our drinks, and Lily quickly wiped her eyes. When we were alone again, I pushed a bit further. Is it Tyler's? I asked, referring to her high school boyfriend, the quiet boy who had started coming around in her senior year. Another nod. Does he know? Is he involved? A bitter laugh escaped her. He knows. He wanted nothing to do with it. With us. Her hand remained protectively on her belly. Oh, honey. I reached across the table, but she pulled her hand away. When I told him, she continued, her voice hardening. He said it was my problem, that I tricked him or something. He blocked my number the next day. Anger flared inside me at this boy who had abandoned my daughter when she needed him most. That's why you ran away, because of Tyler? She shook her head. I ran because I was afraid you and Dad would kick me out anyway. That you'd be disappointed in me. Disgusted. I figured I'd save everyone the trouble. Her words hit me like a physical blow. Why would you ever think that? Lily's food arrived, momentarily pausing our conversation. I watched as she tried to eat slowly, but her hunger was evident in how quickly the food disappeared. We're your parents, Lily. We would never turn our backs on you, I said once she had eaten a bit. I'm adopted, she said simply, as if that explained everything. What does that have to do with anything? You chose me once, she said, her voice small. I thought you could unchoose me too, especially if I disappointed you. The realization of what she was saying washed over me. Despite 15 years in our home, despite all the love we had given her, Lily still carried the fear of abandonment that had taken root in her early years in foster care before we adopted her. Have we ever given you any reason to think our love was conditional? I asked, trying to keep the hurt from my voice. She shook her head slightly. No, but this is different. A baby changes everything. And I know how hard you and Dad tried to have your own biological kids before adopting me. I thought maybe seeing me pregnant would be too painful for you." I took a deep breath, processing her words. It was true that James and I had suffered through years of infertility treatments before turning to adoption. But those wounds had healed long ago, replaced by the joy of raising Lily. "Where have you been staying?" I changed the subject, noticing how she had devoured her food. "Around," she said vaguely. "I had some money saved. It lasted a while. And then," she hesitated, "I've been living in my car for the past 2 months." My heart sank. 2 months? In your condition? What about prenatal care? Have you seen a doctor? Her eyes dropped to her empty plate. "I saw someone at a clinic when I first found out. I couldn't. I couldn't afford to go back." "So you haven't had any medical care since then? For the entire pregnancy?" She shook her head, shame evident in her posture. "Lily," I said gently, "you need to see a doctor. And you need a safe place to sleep, not a car in a parking lot." Fear flashed across her face again. "I can't go to a shelter. They ask too many questions." "I wasn't suggesting a shelter," I said carefully. "I was suggesting home. Our home. Your home." She looked at me with such vulnerability that it took all my strength not to cross to her side of the booth and hold her. "Just until I figure things out," she said finally. "Just for tonight." I nodded, willing to accept this small victory. "Just for tonight," I echoed, though I had no intention of letting her return to her car tomorrow or any day after. As we prepared to leave, I watched her gather her purse, a battered thing I didn't recognize, and noticed how she winced slightly when standing. The hard car seat couldn't have been good for her back, especially with the added weight of pregnancy. "I'll follow you in my car," I said as we walked out into the cool night air. For a moment, panic crossed her features. "You're not trying to trick me, are you? Get me home and then call the police or something?" "Why would I call the police?" I asked, genuinely confused. "I don't know." "For running away? For stealing the car?" She gestured to the Honda. "Lily, you're 19. Adults don't run away, they leave home. And the car was a gift. It's registered in your name." I sighed, realizing how deep her fears ran. "No police. No tricks. I promise." She studied my face for a long moment before nodding, apparently satisfied that I was telling the truth. We walked to our separate vehicles, and as I watched her climb into that dilapidated car that had been her only shelter for months, I made a silent vow. Whatever had driven my daughter away, whatever had made her so afraid, I would fix it. I had to. For her, and for the grandchild I hadn't known existed until tonight. The drive to our suburban home took nearly 40 minutes. Several times I checked my rearview mirror, holding my breath whenever we hit a red light, afraid that Lily might change her mind and disappear again. But the battered blue Honda remained behind me the entire way, its headlights sometimes dimming alarmingly before brightening again, suggesting battery problems that would need addressing soon. As we turned onto Maple Street, I pulled out my phone at a stoplight and quickly texted James. "Coming home. Found Lily. She's with me. Pregnant. We'll explain everything. Be calm." The stream of reply texts made my phone buzz continuously for the next block. I ignored them, focusing on the road and the precious cargo following behind me. Our 2-story colonial came into view, warm lights glowing from the windows. James must have turned on every lamp in the house after getting my text. I pulled into the driveway and motioned for Lily to park behind me. She sat in her car for a long moment after turning off the engine. Through the rearview mirror, I could see her taking deep breaths, steeling herself. Finally, she emerged, clutching a small backpack, apparently the only possessions she had readily accessible. "It'll be okay," I said as I met her in the driveway. "Dad's just happy you're safe." The front door flew open before we reached it. James stood there, still in his work clothes despite the late hour, his face a mixture of relief and shock as he took in the sight of our daughter and her pregnant belly. "Lily," he breathed, stepping forward with arms outstretched before catching himself and stopping, uncertain of his welcome. "Hi, Dad," she said quietly, her eyes downcast. We all stood frozen in this tableau for a moment before I gently guided Lily inside. The familiar smell of home, the cinnamon air freshener I always used, the lingering aroma of the coffee James made each morning seemed to hit Lily hard. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears. "Are you hungry? Can I get you anything?" James asked, clearly struggling to find the right words. "We ate at the diner," I explained, hanging up my coat. "Lily's tired. I thought maybe a shower and bed first, and we can talk more in the morning." Relief crossed James's face at having a plan to follow. "Of course. Yes. Your room is… well, it's been changed a bit," I finished for him. When Lily disappeared, we'd waited 3 months before reluctantly converting part of her bedroom into a home office for James, whose company had moved to remote work during the pandemic. It had felt like giving up, but the empty room had been too painful to pass every day. "That's okay," Lily said quickly. "I don't expect everything to be the same." I led her upstairs, hyper-aware of the subtle changes throughout the house that might feel jarring to her: the new paint in the hallway, the different arrangement of photos on the wall, the absence of her high school graduation picture that I'd taken down during a particularly difficult day, unable to bear looking at her smiling face when we didn't know if she was even alive. When we reached her bedroom, I opened the door slowly. The desk and bookshelf were gone, replaced by James's workstation, but her bed remained, as did her dresser and the lavender wall color she had chosen at 16. "I can clear out Dad's office stuff if you decide to stay longer," I offered, watching her face carefully. "No, this is fine," she said, setting her backpack down. "Really." I busied myself finding fresh sheets in the linen closet, trying to give her space while also desperately wanting to hold her, to assure myself she was really here. "The towels are still in the same place in the bathroom," I said. "And I think there might be some of your old toiletries under the sink." She nodded, looking lost in her own childhood bedroom. "Lily," I began carefully, "do you have other things? In your car? We could bring them in." "Just some clothes," she said, "and a few books. I sold most of my stuff when the money ran out." The casual way she mentioned this broke my heart. I imagined her selling her possessions one by one, trying to survive. "We'll get your things tomorrow," I promised. "For now, just rest." I handed her a clean towel and left her to shower while I returned downstairs to the kitchen, where James was pacing. "Pregnant?" he whispered urgently as soon as I appeared. "How? When? Where has she been all this time? Why didn't she call us?" "I don't have all the answers," I admitted, collapsing into a chair. "She's 7 months along. The father is Tyler, that boy she dated senior year. He abandoned her when she told him. And apparently, she's been living in her car for the past 2 months." James slumped against the counter. "My God. Why didn't she come to us?" "She thought we would reject her," I said, the words still painful to speak, "because of the pregnancy, because we're not her biological parents." Hurt flashed across his face. "After all these years? She still thought that?" "I think it's more complicated than that," I sighed. "She's fragile right now, James. We need to be gentle. No interrogations, no lectures." He nodded, running a hand through his graying hair. "Of course. Whatever she needs." He paused, a new worry crossing his features. "Has she seen a doctor? Is the baby okay? She hasn't had prenatal care since she first found out." "That's our priority tomorrow." The sound of the shower turning off upstairs halted our conversation. A few minutes later, Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, her wet hair combed back, wearing a pair of James's sweatpants with the legs rolled up and one of my old t-shirts that stretched over her belly. The sight of her in our clothes again, like when she was younger, brought a lump to my throat. "I made some chamomile tea," James offered, gesturing to the steaming mug on the table. "Still your favorite, I think?" A small smile touched Lily's lips. "Yeah. Thanks, Dad." She sat at the kitchen table, cradling the mug in her hands. For a moment, none of us spoke. The ticking of the wall clock loud in the silence. "I'm sorry," Lily finally said. "For disappearing like that. For making you worry." "We're just glad you're safe," James said. "Both of you," he added with a glance at her belly. She looked down at her tea. "I don't expect you to help with the baby or anything. I didn't have anywhere else to go." "This is your home, Lily," I said firmly. "Always. And that baby is our grandchild." "I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted, her voice cracking. "I'm not ready to be a mother." I don't have a job or a place to live or… One step at a time, James interrupted gently. First, sleep, then doctor. Then we'll figure out the rest together. Lily nodded, but I could see exhaustion overtaking her as she fought to keep her eyes open. The emotional day, combined with what must have been months of inadequate rest, was catching up with her. Come on, I said, standing. Let's get you to bed. We walked her back upstairs, the three of us falling into old patterns despite the months apart. As Lily crawled into her freshly made bed, I resisted the urge to tuck her in like when she was small. We're right down the hall if you need anything, I reminded her. Anything at all. She nodded sleepily, her eyes already closing. Thank you, she murmured. For finding me. James and I stood watching her for a moment before quietly leaving, pulling the door mostly closed behind us. In the hallway, we held each other, the relief and worry and love overwhelming us both. Later, as I prepared for bed myself, I noticed Lily had left her small backpack in the bathroom. It had fallen over, spilling a few items, a hairbrush, a cheap prepaid phone, and a worn composition notebook that had fallen open, revealing pages of handwriting I recognized as my daughter's. I knew I shouldn't look. It was her private journal. But my maternal instinct, the desperate need to understand what had driven her away, overrode my respect for her privacy. Just a glance, I told myself, just enough to help her. What I found in those pages would change everything I thought I knew about the past 6 months and about the danger my daughter might still be facing. I stood in the bathroom, the journal trembling in my hands as I debated with myself. Reading Lily's private thoughts felt like a betrayal, especially when trust between us was so fragile. But if there was information that could help her, help us understand what she'd been through, didn't I need to know? I compromised with my conscience. I would look only for entries that might explain her disappearance and current situation. Nothing more. The journal was nearly full, entries dating back almost a year. I flipped to entries from around the time she vanished. What I found made my blood run cold. Tyler was so angry when I told him about the baby, one entry read. He said I did it on purpose to trap him. He said no one would believe me if I told them he was the father. His family has too much influence in this town. I turned the page, my heart racing. Tyler came by today, said we need to take care of it before anyone finds out. When I told him I was keeping the baby, he grabbed my arm so hard it left marks. Said I'd regret it if I ruined his future. The entries grew increasingly disturbing. Tyler says if I tell Mom and Dad, he'll make sure I lose any chance at the art school scholarship. His dad is on the board of trustees. He keeps reminding me how easy it would be for him to destroy my future. Caught Tyler going through my phone today, deleting messages from my friends. He says I don't need anyone but him now. That the baby means we're connected forever. But the way he says it doesn't sound like love. It sounds like a threat. My hands shook as I continued reading. This wasn't the quiet, polite boy who had come to our house for dinner, who had taken Lily to prom. This was a controlling, manipulative abuser who had isolated my daughter and terrorized her. Tyler's father came to see me today. Mr. Wheeler offered me money to make the problem go away. Either termination or adoption. He didn't care which. Said his son has a bright future that doesn't include playing house with someone like me. When I refused, he mentioned how many judges and police officers are friends of the family. The threat was clear. I had to sit down on the edge of the bathtub, overcome with nausea. The Wheeler family. Gregory Wheeler was one of the wealthiest men in town, a developer whose name appeared on half the commercial buildings downtown. Old money, powerful connections. I can't tell Mom and Dad now, another entry read. Tyler says if I do, his father will make sure they regret it. Something about business permits for Dad's company being suddenly difficult to obtain. I can't risk it. I have to leave. I have to protect them. She had run away, not out of shame, but to protect us. My poor, brave, misguided daughter had been trying to shield her family from the Wheeler family's influence. The most recent entries detailed her life after leaving sleeping in cheap motels until the money ran out, taking odd jobs paid under the table, finally resorting to living in her car when she could no longer afford even the most basic shelter. Filed for a restraining order today, one entry from 3 months ago stated. But the court clerk seemed to recognize Tyler's name. I saw her make a call as I was leaving. Later, Tyler texted me, saying I'd better withdraw it if I know what's good for me. How did he find out so quickly? I'm scared all the time now. And then, the entry that made my heart stop. Tyler somehow found out where I was staying, followed me after my shift at the diner, said the baby is his and he'll make sure I never keep it, that his parents would raise it properly, not by some charity case his family took pity on. I withdrew the restraining order request. I'm leaving town tomorrow. I can't risk him finding me again. I closed the journal, feeling physically ill. All this time, Lily hadn't just been a pregnant teenager afraid of disappointing her parents. She had been a victim, hunted and threatened by her abuser and his powerful family, forced into hiding to protect herself and her unborn child. Needing to know more, I carefully searched the rest of her backpack. There, tucked into a side pocket, I found a folded paper, a copy of the withdrawn restraining order application. Attached to it were printouts of text messages, saved as evidence. You'll never get away with this. My family owns this town. No judge will ever give trash like you custody of my child. Keep running. I'll always find you. And when the baby comes, you'll see what happens to people who cross the Wheelers. There were dozens more, each more threatening than the last. With shaking hands, I returned everything to the backpack except for one page of texts, which I photographed with my phone. Then I went to our bedroom, where James was waiting up for me. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately, seeing my face. "Is Lily okay?" "She's asleep," I assured him, sitting heavily on the edge of the bed. "But we have a bigger problem than I realized." I showed him the photo of the threats, then summarized what I'd read in the journal. With each detail, his expression darkened. "That little bastard," he finally said, his voice low with anger, "and his father. They terrorized our daughter, drove her into homelessness, and thought they could get away with it because of their name? They almost did," I pointed out. "And they might still try. Lily is terrified of them, James. That's why she ran, not because of the pregnancy itself, but because of Tyler's threats." James was already reaching for his laptop. "Gregory Wheeler," he muttered, typing rapidly. "Let's see exactly what we're dealing with." Over the next hour, we researched the Wheeler family extensively. Gregory Wheeler was indeed prominent CEO of Wheeler Development, board member for half a dozen local organizations, major donor to political campaigns. His son, Tyler, now a freshman at the State University, had a clean public record, though we found a few buried news items suggesting previous incidents that had been quietly resolved. 2 underage drinking citations disappeared, James noted. "And look at this, a complaint filed by a former girlfriend's parents that was suddenly withdrawn." "Sound familiar?" "They use their influence to make problems go away," I said grimly, "including Lily." "Not this time," James said firmly. "This time they've messed with the wrong family." I nodded, but fear still gnawed at me. "We have to be careful, James. Lily came to us for safety. We need to make sure we can provide that before we take any action." "Agreed. First priority is her health and the baby's. Second is legal protection. Then we deal with the Wheelers." We stayed up late into the night, making plans, researching resources for domestic violence survivors, looking into family lawyers who weren't connected to Wheeler's network of influence. By the time we finally went to sleep, we had the outline of a strategy to protect our daughter and grandchild. As I drifted off, one thought kept circling in my mind. Tyler Wheeler and his family had picked the wrong people to threaten. They didn't know it yet, but they had just encountered the fiercest force in nature, parents protecting their child. Morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows as I prepared breakfast, trying to remember Lily's favorites from before she left. I settled on scrambled eggs, whole wheat toast, and sliced fruit, healthy options for her and the baby. James had already left for a mysterious errand, assuring me he'd be back soon. I heard movement upstairs and took a deep breath, preparing for the conversation ahead. How would I explain finding the journal? How would she react to knowing I'd invaded her privacy? Lily appeared in the doorway, her hair tousled from sleep, looking young and vulnerable in the borrowed clothes. "Morning," I said, keeping my tone light. "Sleep okay?" She nodded, sliding into a chair at the table. "Better than I have in months." I placed a plate of food in front of her, noticing how her eyes widened at the portion size. "Eat as much as you want, there's plenty more." We ate in companionable silence for a few minutes, The familiar routine of breakfast together, almost making it feel like the past 6 months hadn't happened. Almost. Lily, I finally said, setting down my coffee cup. I need to tell you something, and I hope you won't be too angry. She looked up, wariness immediately replacing the momentary calm on her face. Last night, your backpack was in the bathroom. It tipped over, and your journal fell out. I paused, watching her expression shift from wariness to alarm. I read some of it. Not all, just enough to understand what's really been happening with Tyler and his family. Lily's face drained of color. You had no right, she whispered. But there was more fear than anger in her voice. I know, and I'm sorry. But Lily, why didn't you tell us? About the threats, the restraining order, all of it? Because it would only make things worse, she exclaimed, pushing her plate away. You don't know the Wheelers, Mom. They have connections everywhere. Tyler's dad practically owns the mayor. They could destroy Dad's business with one phone call. No family has that much power, I tried to reassure her. They do in this town, she insisted. That's why I left. To protect you and Dad. To protect the baby. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. I reached across the table, relieved when she didn't pull away this time. Lily, listen to me. You were trying to protect everyone by yourself, and that was incredibly brave. But unnecessary. We're your parents. Protecting you is our job, not the other way around. Tears welled in her eyes. I was so scared, Mom. Tyler changed after I got pregnant, or maybe he was always like that, and I just didn't see it. He started controlling everything who I talked to, where I went. Checking my phone. Following me. Classic abuser behavior, I noted grimly. Isolation is their first tactic. She nodded. At first, I thought he was just stressed about the baby, but then he started threatening me. Said if I kept it, he'd make sure I lost custody, that his parents would take the baby, and I'd never see it again. Did he ever hurt you physically? I asked carefully. He grabbed me a few times, left bruises. Her voice was small, pushed me once, but I caught myself before I fell. That's when I knew I had to get out, because of the baby. My heart ached for what she'd endured alone. Why didn't you come to us then? Tyler said he'd come after you too. Said his dad would make sure Dad never got another building contract in the county, and I believed him because I saw how they operated. How problems just went away for their family. So you ran instead. She nodded miserably. I thought I could start over somewhere else. Get a job, save enough for when the baby came. But everything costs so much. And nobody wants to hire a pregnant teenager with no references. The back door opened, and James entered, carrying several shopping bags. Sorry that took so long, he said, setting the bags on the counter. The pharmacy had a line. He nodded a greeting to Lily. Morning, sweetheart. Sleep well? She nodded, quickly wiping her eyes. I picked up some prenatal vitamins, he said, pulling bottles from one bag. The pharmacist recommended these brands. And some healthy snacks. Ginger candies for nausea. Oh, and this. He produced a body pillow designed for pregnancy. The internet said these help with back pain in the 3rd trimester. Lily looked stunned. You bought all this for me? Of course, he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. We have a lot of catching up to do, baby preparation-wise. Fresh tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. I don't deserve this. After I just disappeared, James pulled a chair close to hers. Lily, your mom told me everything this morning. About Tyler, the threats, all of it. His voice was gentle but firm. You did what you thought you had to do to protect yourself and the baby. But now you're home, and we're going to face this together. The Wheelers, she began, are just people? James finished. Wealthy, connected people, yes. But not untouchable. No one is. I've made an appointment with Dr. Martinez for this afternoon, I added. We need to make sure you and the baby are healthy. And I've reached out to a friend who works with domestic violence survivors. She can help us with legal protections. Tyler will fight it, Lily said, fear edging her voice. He'll deny everything. Let him try, James said, a hardness in his voice I rarely heard. Those texts you saved? The journal entries? The withdrawn restraining order? That's all evidence, Lily. But his family doesn't outrank the law, I assured her, though privately I shared some of her concerns about the Wheelers' influence. One step at a time, okay? First the doctor, then legal help. She seemed overwhelmed but nodded agreement. There's something else we should discuss, I said carefully. Your plans for the baby. I know this pregnancy wasn't your choice, at least not the circumstances. Have you thought about what you want to do after the birth? Lily's hands cradled her belly protectively. I'm keeping my baby, she said with surprising firmness. That's why I ran. That's why I lived in my car. The Wheelers wanted me to give the baby up or worse. But I couldn't. It's mine, not theirs. Not Tyler's. Then we'll support whatever you need, James assured her. Whether that's help with childcare while you finish school, or a place to live, or… A sharp knock at the front door interrupted him. We all froze, exchanging worried glances. I'll get it, James said, standing. Lily grabbed his arm, panic in her eyes. What if it's them? What if they found me? They don't know you're here, I assured her, though my own heart was racing. Stay in the kitchen. James and I moved to the front hall. Through the sidelight window, I could make out a woman's silhouette. Not Tyler, at least. James opened the door cautiously. On our doorstep stood an elegant woman in her 50s, expensively dressed, with perfectly coiffed blonde hair. I recognized her immediately from the charity gala photos I'd seen online during our research last night. Barbara Wheeler, Tyler's mother. Mrs. Reynolds? She asked, her voice surprisingly soft. I'm Barbara Wheeler. I believe we need to talk about our children. I don't think we have anything to discuss, James said firmly, moving to close the door. Barbara Wheeler placed her hand on the door frame. Please. I'm alone. No one knows I'm here. It's about Lily and the baby. I stepped forward. How did you even know she was here? I've had a private investigator tracking Tyler's activities for months, she admitted. When he suddenly started making calls this morning, asking about Lily's old haunts, I knew something had changed. It wasn't hard to guess she might have come home. The idea that Tyler was already looking for Lily sent a chill through me. What do you want, Mrs. Wheeler? To help, she said simply. May I come in? I promise I'm not here to cause trouble. James and I exchanged glances. Against our better judgment, we stepped aside to let her enter the foyer, but no further. Lily is safe here, I said, my voice steely. And she's staying with us. I'm glad, Barbara said, surprising us both. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. Before we could respond, Lily appeared in the hallway, drawn by the unfamiliar voice. She froze when she saw Barbara, one hand instinctively going to her belly. It's all right, honey, I said quickly, moving to her side. Mrs. Wheeler was just leaving. Actually, Barbara said, addressing Lily directly, I came to warn you, and to offer my help. Lily's face registered nothing but confusion and fear. Your help? Your son has been threatening me for months. Your husband offered me money to get rid of my baby. Barbara's composed exterior cracked slightly, genuine regret showing through. I know. And I can never adequately apologize for what my family has done to you. But I'm not here on their behalf. I'm here in spite of them. We moved to the living room, maintaining a protective formation around Lily. Barbara perched on the edge of an armchair while we took the sofa, Lily securely between James and me. Tyler doesn't know I'm here, Barbara began. Neither does my husband, if they did. She paused, composing herself. Let's just say our household isn't as perfect as the society pages suggest. What does that mean? Exactly, James asked, skepticism evident. Barbara met his gaze directly. It means I've been living with emotional abuse for 25 years. That I've watched my husband's controlling behavior pass to my son. That I've been too weak, too afraid to stop it until now. None of us knew how to respond to this unexpected confession. Gregory, my husband, he controls everything. The money, the social connections, the family image. When I found out what Tyler had been doing to Lily, how they had threatened her, I tried to intervene. The result was unpleasant. She unconsciously touched her wrist, where I noticed a fading bruise, partially covered by her watch. He hurt you? Lily asked softly, her fear seemingly forgotten in the face of another's pain. Barbara nodded almost imperceptibly. It wasn't the first time. But it made me realize something important. If I don't stop this cycle now, it will never end. Tyler will become his father, and any child he has influence over will suffer. Why should we trust you? I asked, still suspicious. This could be a trick to find out our plans, to report back to your husband. It's not, she insisted, opening her handbag. She removed a USB drive and placed it on the coffee table. This contains evidence of Gregory's business irregularities. Tax fraud. Bribes to city officials. Records of past incidents with Tyler that were covered up, including a sexual assault accusation from his high school girlfriend that my husband paid to make disappear. We stared at the small device, stunned by what it represented. I've been collecting evidence for years, Barbara continued. Insurance, I called it. Protection for when I finally found the courage to leave. But I realize now it's more important as protection for Lily and her baby. Why now? James asked. Why help Lily when you've been part of covering up your family's behavior for so long? Because I see myself in her, Barbara said simply. Young, vulnerable, trapped by a Wheeler man, but mostly because of the baby. I can't let another generation be poisoned by my husband's influence. Lily, who had been silent, finally spoke. What exactly are you offering? Financial support, for starters. An account your parents would control, not connected to the Wheeler name. Testimony against Tyler if you pursue a restraining order or custody case. And information about which local officials are in my husband's pocket, so you can avoid them. It sounded too good to be true. What do you want in return? I asked. Nothing, Barbara said. Or perhaps redemption. In some small way. A chance to break the cycle of abuse in my family. Tyler's been trying to find me again, Lily said. Not a question, but a statement. Barbara nodded grimly. He found out yesterday that you'd withdrawn money from an ATM on the north side of town. He's been making calls this morning, asking friends if they've seen you. Fear flashed across Lily's face. So he knows I'm back in town. He suspects, but he doesn't know you're here, Barbara assured her. Not yet. But it won't take him long to figure it out. We need to move quickly then, James said, his protective instinct in full force. Get the restraining order reinstated. Document everything. The right judge makes all the difference, Barbara advised. Judge Keating is fair, independent. My husband hasn't been able to influence her, though not for lack of trying. For the next hour, Barbara outlined everything she knew about the Wheeler family's network of influence, which police officers were on Gregory's payroll, which court clerks reported back to him, which local officials could be trusted and which could not. It was a sobering picture of corruption in our small city, centered around one powerful family. I should go, Barbara finally said, checking her watch. Gregory monitors my movements, and I've been out longer than I can easily explain. Why don't you leave him? Lily asked suddenly. Come stay with us. We could protect each other. The unexpected offer, so generous from someone who had suffered at the hands of Barbara's family, brought tears to the older woman's eyes. Oh, my dear, that's braver than you know. But I'm not ready yet. Soon, though. She stood, smoothing her expensive skirt. I have my own exit plan. After I help secure your safety, I'll execute it. As we walked her to the door, Barbara turned to Lily one last time. I want you to know, I never agreed with how they treated you. I was too cowardly to stop it then. I won't make that mistake again. After she left, we sat in stunned silence, trying to process this unexpected turn of events. Do you think we can trust her? Lily finally asked. I'm not sure, I admitted, but the information she provided seems genuine, and if she's really willing to testify against her own family, it would change everything, James finished. With Barbara's evidence and testimony, plus what Lily has already documented, we'd have a strong case. For what? Lily asked. I don't want Tyler in prison. I just want him to leave us alone. For a restraining order. At minimum, I explained. And to ensure he can't make a claim on the baby. Lily looked relieved. So we use Barbara's help, but cautiously? James nodded. We verify everything independently. And we still move forward with our own plans. Doctor's appointment today, lawyer tomorrow. As Lily went upstairs to get dressed for her appointment, James and I examined the USB drive Barbara had left, carefully scanning for any tracking software before opening the files. What we found was shocking years of documented corruption, financial misconduct, and covered-up incidents, all meticulously organized. She's been planning her escape for a long time, James observed. And now she's helping Lily plan hers, I added. We were still processing this unexpected alliance when Lily returned downstairs, dressed in her own clothes from yesterday, newly washed and dried. I need some things from my car, she said. Clothes and stuff. I'll go with you, I offered immediately. As we walked to her Honda, still parked in our driveway, I noticed how Lily's posture had already changed, less hunched, less defensive. Having allies in her fight, even unexpected ones, had given her new strength. What we didn't realize was how quickly that strength would be tested, as the Wheeler family was already making their next move against us. Dr. Martinez's office was warm and welcoming, decorated with cheerful images of healthy babies and mothers, but nothing could completely ease the anxiety radiating from Lily as we sat in the waiting room. It'll be okay, I assured her, though I was nervous too. 7 months with no prenatal care was risky. What if something's wrong with the baby? Lily whispered, voicing our shared fear. Because I couldn't afford proper care? Then we'll deal with it, I said firmly, together. The nurse called Lily's name, and we both stood. In the exam room, Dr. Martinez, a kind woman in her 50s who had been my own doctor for years, greeted us warmly. Lily, she said, your mother tells me you've had quite a journey. Let's make sure you and this little one are doing okay. The examination was thorough. Blood pressure, weight, blood tests, questions about nutrition, symptoms, fetal movement, and finally, the moment we'd been holding our breath for, the ultrasound. The room filled with a rapid whooshing sound, the baby's heartbeat, strong and steady. Lily's eyes widened, tears spilling down her cheeks as she saw her child on the monitor for the first time. There's your baby, Dr. Martinez said, pointing to the screen. Good size, good position. All limbs and organs appear normal from what I can see. So, everything's okay? Lily asked hesitantly. The baby looks healthy, Dr. Martinez confirmed. You, young lady, are another matter. You're underweight and showing signs of nutritional deficiencies. The baby has been taking what it needs from your body, but that's left you depleted. She prescribed prenatal vitamins, iron supplements, and a high-protein diet. And rest, she emphasized. Your body has been through a lot. You need to take care of yourself as much as the baby now. It's a girl, Lily said wonderingly as we left the office, clutching the ultrasound photos. I'm having a daughter. The relief of knowing the baby was healthy had transformed her. For the first time since I'd found her in that parking lot, Lily looked truly happy. We should celebrate, I suggested. Stop by the baby store on the way home? She hesitated only briefly before nodding. I don't have any money, though. This is on Grandma, I said, surprising myself with how natural the title felt. At Baby Beginnings, we filled a cart with essentials, a portable crib for our house, basic clothing in newborn and 0 to 3 month sizes, diapers, a car seat. Lily approached each selection carefully, examining price tags with the wariness of someone who had lived on the edge of poverty. It's really okay, I assured her, adding a soft yellow blanket to the cart. This is what family does. By the time we arrived home, the trunk loaded with baby supplies, James had news. I spoke with Diane Keating, he announced. Diane was a lawyer friend from college who specialized in family law. She can see us tomorrow morning. And I've been researching resources for young mothers. There's a program at the community college that offers childcare while you take classes. Lily looked overwhelmed. You're doing all this for me? After I ran away? We never stopped being your parents, James said simply. Even when we didn't know where you were. That evening, we spread brochures across the dining table, educational options, support groups for young mothers, financial planning resources. For the first time, Lily began to see a future beyond day-to-day survival. I was taking art therapy courses, she admitted, picking up a community college catalog. Before everything happened with Tyler. I really liked it. You could continue, I suggested. After the baby comes, we could help with childcare. You'd do that? In a heartbeat, James confirmed. Lily's expression turned thoughtful. If I finish a degree, maybe I could help other girls someday. Girls like me. That sounds perfect, I said, recognizing the healing power of her idea, not just helping herself, but extending that help to others. The next morning brought our meeting with Diane, who listened intently to Lily's story, reviewing the journal entries, text messages, and the information Barbara Wheeler had provided. This is a strong case for a permanent restraining order, she concluded. And with Barbara's testimony, we can ensure Tyler has no claim to custody. Can we keep this quiet? Lily asked anxiously. I don't want everyone knowing my business. We'll file for a sealed record due to domestic violence, Diane assured her. That gives you privacy protection. As we left Diane's office with a plan in place, I felt cautiously optimistic for the first time. We had medical care established, legal help secured, and the beginnings of a future plan for Lily and her daughter. That sense of progress was shattered when we arrived home to find a formal-looking envelope propped against our front door. What's that? Lily asked as James picked it up. His expression darkened as he read the contents. It's from Gregory Wheeler's lawyer. He's threatening to sue for grandparents' rights to the baby. And there's more. He's claiming Lily is an unfit mother due to mental instability and homelessness. Can he do that? I asked, watching the color drain from Lily's face. He can try, James said grimly. But he won't succeed. Not with what we know now. Inside, James immediately called Diane to report this new development. I guided Lily to the sofa, trying to calm her rising panic. He can't take your baby, I assured her. We won't let that happen. You don't know Gregory Wheeler, she said, trembling. He always gets what he wants. Not this time, I said with more confidence than I felt. This time, he's met his match. The threatening letter, rather than intimidating us into silence, only strengthened our resolve. It also confirmed that our alliance with Barbara was genuine. She had warned us this might happen. That evening, as we fortified ourselves with Barbara's information and the evidence we'd collected, an unexpected visitor arrived. The sight of Gregory Wheeler himself standing on our doorstep sent a wave of protective fury through me. We have nothing to say to you, James said through the barely open door. Any communication should go through our lawyer. I think you'll want to hear what I have to say, Gregory replied, his confidence grating. It concerns your daughter's future and my grandchild's. What happened next would test our family's strength like nothing before, bringing the conflict to a head in a way none of us could have anticipated. We hadn't invited Gregory Wheeler into our home, but somehow he stood in our living room anyway, his imposing presence filling the space with tension. Tall and distinguished, with silver hair and an expensive suit, he looked every bit the successful businessman his reputation suggested. Where is Lily? He demanded without preamble. Not your concern, James replied, standing firm. Say what you came to say, then leave. Gregory's practiced smile didn't reach his cold eyes. I understand you're upset. Family matters can be so emotional. But I'm here to propose a reasonable solution to our situation. There is no our situation, I countered. Lily is our daughter. She's carrying her baby. The only situation is that your son terrorized and threatened her. Gregory waved a dismissive hand. Young relationships are complicated. Tyler admits he could have handled things better. But that doesn't change the fact that this child is a Wheeler by blood. A child your son wanted nothing to do with until now, James pointed out. A child he told Lily to get rid of. Youthful impulsiveness, Gregory said smoothly. Tyler has matured since then. He's prepared to take responsibility. By threatening Lily? By having you intimidate her with legal action? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. Let's be practical, Gregory continued as if I hadn't spoken. Lily is 19, unemployed, recently homeless. No judge would consider her a fit parent. Our offer is generous financial support in exchange for Wheeler family involvement in the child's upbringing. You mean control, James translated. You want to control Lily and the baby. Gregory's facade slipped slightly, annoyance flashing across his features. What we want is what's best for a Wheeler heir. Proper education. Proper opportunities. What you want doesn't matter. came a voice from the doorway. Lily stood there, one hand protectively on her belly, facing her tormentor's father with remarkable composure. Gregory turned, his expression softening into something almost predatory. "Lily, you're looking well. Better than when you were sleeping in that car, I imagine." She flinched but held her ground. "You had me followed?" "We keep track of family matters," he replied, "and like it or not, you're connected to our family now." "No, I'm not," Lily said firmly. "My baby will be a Reynolds. She will never be a Wheeler." "She?" Gregory's eyebrows rose. "A granddaughter. How lovely. All the more reason to ensure she has the Wheeler advantages." "The same advantages you gave Tyler?" Lily challenged. "Teaching him that money and power mean he can do whatever he wants to whoever he wants?" Gregory's false warmth disappeared entirely. "Be careful, young lady. You're in a very precarious position. One call from me to the right people, and your parents could face all sorts of difficulties: tax audits, building code violations, insurance problems. Are you threatening us?" James stepped forward. "I'm describing reality," Gregory replied coldly. "This town doesn't belong to you." Came another voice. Barbara Wheeler walked through our still-open front door, her elegant appearance at odds with the determination on her face. Gregory stared at his wife in shock. "Barbara? What are you doing here?" "Exactly what I should have done years ago," she replied. "Stopping you." "This doesn't concern you," he snapped. "Go home." "It concerns me more than anyone," Barbara countered, moving to stand beside Lily. "I won't let you do to this young woman and her child what you did to me and Tyler." Gregory's face darkened with anger. "You're embarrassing yourself. Whatever fantasy you've concocted, it's not fantasy, Gregory. It's evidence." Barbara nodded toward James, who held up the USB drive she had provided. "Every dirty deal, every covered-up incident, every bribe, I've documented it all." "For years, you're bluffing," Gregory said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "The secret account in the Caymans," Barbara continued calmly. "The payoffs to Judge Harmon. The real reason the Hamilton development was approved despite environmental concerns." "Should I continue?" Gregory's confident facade crumbled, replaced by cold fury. "You treacherous bitch. After everything I've given you—" "Given me?" Barbara laughed bitterly. "You've given me bruises, Gregory. Humiliation. Fear. And you've taught our son to be just like you." As if summoned by his mention, Tyler burst through the front door, wild-eyed and angry. "Dad, what the hell is going on? Why is Mom's car here?" Lily instinctively stepped back at the sight of him, and I moved to her side, placing myself between her and the young man who had caused her so much pain. "Tyler," Barbara said, her voice surprisingly gentle. "It's over. The threats, the control, all of it. It stops now." "Stay out of this, Mom," Tyler snapped, his gaze fixed on Lily. "This is between me and her." "No, it's not," Lily said, finding her courage again. "It's between me and my baby. You lost any right to be involved when you told me to take care of it, and then threatened me when I refused." Tyler's handsome face contorted with rage. "That baby is mine. You think you can just take my kid and—" "That's enough," James interrupted, pulling out his phone. "I've already pressed our panic button. Police are on their way. And unlike the officers on your father's payroll, these ones report directly to the State Police Oversight Board." Gregory paled slightly. "You're making a serious mistake. This isn't how civilized people resolve differences." "Civilized?" I echoed incredulously. "You call threatening a pregnant teenager civilized? Stalking her? Driving her into homelessness?" "We offered her money," Gregory insisted. "A generous settlement. In exchange for my baby," Lily said. "My daughter is not for sale." The wail of approaching sirens cut through the tension. Gregory grabbed Tyler's arm. "We're leaving." "This isn't over." "Actually it is," Barbara said, pulling an envelope from her purse. "Restraining order, Gregory, against you and Tyler both. Protecting Lily, her baby, and myself." She handed him the document. "I filed it this morning with Judge Keating. You come near any of us again, you'll be arrested." Gregory stared at the paper, then at his wife, seeming to truly see her for the first time. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. When this ridiculous rebellion is over, don't expect to come crawling back. I've been regretting not doing this for 25 years, Barbara replied. I won't make that mistake again. 2 police officers appeared at the door, taking in the tense scene. Everything all right here? One asked. Mr. Wheeler and his son were just leaving, James said firmly. And they're both subject to this restraining order. He handed the document to the officer. Under the watchful eyes of law enforcement, Gregory and Tyler had no choice but to depart. As they walked to their car, I could see Gregory berating his son, the cycle of abuse continuing between them. Once they were gone, Barbara sagged visibly, the confrontation having taken its toll. I've waited so long to stand up to him, she murmured. I didn't think I could. You were incredible, Lily told her, surprising us all by embracing the older woman. After explaining the situation to the officers and confirming the restraining order was properly filed and enforceable, we gathered in the kitchen, emotionally drained but victorious. Will they really stay away? Lily asked, the fear still lingering in her voice. Gregory has too much to lose now, Barbara assured her. With what I know, what I can prove, he won't risk exposure by coming after any of us again. What will you do now? I asked her. Barbara smiled sadly. Start over. I have my own money he doesn't know about. A house in my sister's name 3 states away. It's time I remembered who I was before I became Mrs. Gregory Wheeler. As the day's events settled around us, I watched Lily and Barbara talking quietly, 2 women at different stages of life, both finding the courage to break free from the same man's toxic influence. In standing up for each other, they had each found strength they didn't know they possessed. That night, after Barbara left for a hotel, refusing our offer to stay, concerned about maintaining the legal protection of the restraining order, Lily helped me prepare dinner, moving around the kitchen with growing confidence. I never thought I'd be back here, she admitted, chopping vegetables beside me. When I drove away 6 months ago, I was sure that was it. That I'd never see you and Dad again. But you did come back, I reminded her. In a roundabout way. She smiled, a hand resting on her belly. I guess I had to hit rock bottom to find my way home. Some journeys are like that, I said, thinking of Barbara Wheeler's much longer path to freedom. The important thing is you made it. As we called James for dinner, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. We had confronted the Wheeler family's power and emerged intact. We had our daughter back, and soon we would welcome a new life into our imperfect but loving family. 1 year later, our home echoed with the delighted giggles of a baby learning to walk. Hope Reynolds, now 11 months old, clung to the edge of the coffee table, her chubby legs wobbling as she contemplated her next move. Come on, sweetie, Lily encouraged from a few feet away, arms outstretched. Come to Mama. Hope's face scrunched in concentration, her mother's eyes staring out from a face that was otherwise uniquely her own. With a determined grunt, she released her grip on the table and took one tottering step, then another, before tumbling into Lily's waiting arms. She did it, Lily exclaimed, looking up at me with radiant joy. Mom, did you see that? I saw, I confirmed, snapping a photo to send to James, who was at work. She's fearless, just like her mother. The transformation in Lily over the past year had been remarkable. From the terrified, pregnant teenager living in her car to the confident young mother now juggling community college classes and parenthood, she had grown in ways I couldn't have imagined that night in the grocery store parking lot. Hope's birth had been the turning point. Despite the drama leading up to it, the delivery itself had been straightforward. James and I had been there, supporting Lily through each contraction, witnessing the miracle of our granddaughter entering the world with healthy lungs and a powerful cry. In the months that followed, we'd settled into new routines. Lily had taken a semester off to bond with Hope, then enrolled in the community college's art therapy program. 3 days a week, she attended classes while I watched Hope, an arrangement that gave Lily educational opportunities without the crushing childcare costs that kept so many young mothers from pursuing their dreams. We should finish setting up for the party, Lily reminded me, lifting Hope onto her hip. Aunt Barbara will be here soon. Barbara Wheeler, now simply Barbara Davis, having reclaimed her maiden name after her divorce, had become an integral part of our extended family. Living 3 hours away in her new life, she visited monthly, delighting in her role as Hope's honorary aunt. The Wheeler men had faded from our lives, their threats neutralized by Barbara's evidence and the legal protections we'd put in place. Gregory's development company had faced federal investigation, resulting in charges of tax fraud and bribery. Tyler had been sent to a rehabilitation facility after a DUI incident, finally facing consequences for his actions. As we prepared for Hope's first birthday celebration, I marveled at how our family had expanded and strengthened through crisis. James came home early, carrying the cake he'd special ordered, a small yellow confection decorated with a rainbow, symbolizing the hope that had carried us through the darkest times. Our guests began to arrive: Barbara, of course, Diane Keating, the lawyer who had become a friend, Dr. Martinez, who had delivered hope and continued to care for both mother and child, and several of Lily's classmates from her young mother's support group. I never imagined this, Lily confessed to me quietly as we watched Hope being adored by our gathered friends. When I was living in my car, I thought my life was over, that I'd ruined everything. Life has a way of surprising us, I replied, hugging her shoulders. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. After cake and presents, Lily gathered everyone's attention, nervously holding a large envelope. I have an announcement, she said. I've been working on something, and today it finally happened. She opened the envelope and pulled out an official-looking document. I've been awarded a scholarship for next year. Full tuition, plus a stipend for art therapy supplies. Cheers erupted around the room. James hugged her fiercely, pride evident on his face. That's not all, Lily continued once the excitement quieted. The program I'm in, helping young mothers express trauma through art, it's being expanded. And they've asked me to be a peer counselor for new participants. That's my girl, Barbara said proudly, using your experience to help others. As the party continued around us, I found myself watching Lily, the confident way she moved through the room, the loving attention she gave Hope, the easy laugh that had returned after months of healing. She caught my eye across the room and smiled, a smile that reached all the way to her eyes now. Later, after guests had departed and Hope was tucked into her crib, the three of us sat on the back porch, enjoying the spring evening. I've been thinking, Lily said, breaking the comfortable silence, about that night you found me in the parking lot. What about it? I asked. I almost drove away, she admitted. When I first saw you, my instinct was to run, again. What made you stay? James asked. Lily considered this. I think some part of me always knew I would need you. That I couldn't do it alone, no matter how much I thought I had to. No one should have to face life's challenges alone, I said. That's what family is for, not to control you like the Wheelers, but to support you while you find your own way. I understand that now, Lily said, and I want Hope to understand it too. That asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. As darkness fell and stars appeared overhead, I reflected on our journey. From the devastating discovery of my daughter pregnant and homeless, terrified of her own family, to this peaceful moment of hard-won stability and hope. We had faced threats, confronted power, and emerged stronger, not just surviving, but thriving. Lily had found her voice and her purpose. Hope was growing in a home filled with love, and I had discovered new depths to my own strength as a mother, willing to fight any battle necessary to protect my child, even an adult child, even one I hadn't given birth to. Family, I realized, was not defined by blood or biology, by legal documents or social expectations. It was defined by love, imperfect, sometimes messy, but enduring. It was defined by showing up, by staying present through the hardest moments, by offering second chances and believing in new beginnings. As I looked at my daughter and granddaughter, I felt profound gratitude for the twist of fate that had led me to that grocery store parking lot 1 year ago. Sometimes the most difficult discoveries lead to the most beautiful destinations. Have you ever experienced a moment when finding someone at their lowest point became the beginning of something beautiful? How did you navigate supporting someone who was afraid to accept help? Share your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it touched your heart, subscribe to hear more real-life family journeys, and share with someone who might need to be reminded that it's never too late for a new beginning. Thank you for listening to our story, and remember, sometimes when we're brave enough to reach out, we find the healing that both of us needed all along.